heard a lot of amazing stories of lost pets eventually making their way back to their owners, but the story of a 1-year-old dachshund surviving for a year and a half on an Australian island is definitely up there. Welcome to the Goodish news channel. I'm Ashley, your professional pessimist. In an effort to stop the doom scrolling, I'm bringing you news stories that won't fill you with overwhelming anxiety. While what I share may not always be great news, it will at least be good-ish. I've been following this story for a couple months, but didn't want to report on it until I knew the outcome. So at long last, here's the story of a very scrappy dachshund who went on an 18-month walkabout on a South Australian island. Georgia Gardner and Josh Fishlock took their beloved pet Valerie on a camping trip to Kangaroo Island in 2023. Side note, if you give your pet a human name, you've earned extra points in my book. Georgia and Josh went out fishing and left 1-year-old Valerie at the campsite in a pen while they were away. But when they got back, they found the pen empty and no sign of where the dog had gone. They spent days looking for her, but eventually had to head back to the mainland. Georgia and Josh were understandably heartbroken. Nearly a year after Valerie vanished, some people in an area called Stokes Bay reported seeing a small dog wearing a pink collar. This was about 9 miles away from where Valerie had initially gone missing. At this point, Kangala Wildlife Rescue stepped in and began attempting to capture the dog. Using food like chicken and tuna, volunteers hoped they'd be able to lure Valerie into a trap. But Valerie is an independent woman and she knew something was up. For the next 6 months or so, she kept evading capture. Volunteers logged over 1,000 hours and traveled 5,000 kilometers setting up cameras to track her across the island. This March, they finally were able to spot her on camera, which proved she was still in the area. The rescue created a scent trail using a shirt Gardner had worn, put out Valerie's old toys, and set out a crate like the one she had had at home. They came up with a plan to capture Valerie by using a trap with a door that could be controlled remotely. Instead of closing the door right away, the rescue team waited for over 2 weeks, allowing Valerie to visit and leave freely. They wanted her to feel safe and comfortable, so they kept an eye on her through the cameras. When she finally wandered to the far end of the trap one day, they remotely closed the door, and Valerie's days of living on the run were over. Despite her 18-month rebellious streak, Valerie was found in surprisingly good health. She had actually put on weight during her time in the wild. She survived by scavenging for food, drinking from natural water sources, and relying on her natural instincts. After her capture, rescuers took things slowly to help Valerie adjust. They avoided approaching her too quickly or making direct eye contact. But within a couple of hours, she decided it was time for love and affection after an 18-month hiatus, and was comfortable enough to sit in someone's lap. After the 1,000 hours of volunteer work, I guess she decided to throw him a bone. After a week of recovery, Valerie was finally reunited with Georgia and Josh. They said she ran straight to Georgia, tail wagging and making her signature happy noises. Now Valerie is heading back to her home in New South Wales. Her owners are working with a dog behaviorist and keeping her on a raw food diet to help her adjust after her wild adventure. She'll soon be reunited with her old animal friends and meet a new dachshund buddy named Dorothy. Not many domesticated animals, let alone a short-legged dachshund, could survive 18 months on an island full of venomous snakes, giant spiders, and hungry birds of prey. But Valerie did. Honestly, even Steve Irwin would have tipped his hat.
Check this girl out! Unbelievable!
If you think you've made questionable life choices, just wait until you hear this next story. Tim Friede, a man from Wisconsin, must have been inspired by Spider-Man, but instead of turning to spiders for superhuman powers, he chose snakes. Lots of them, like around 200. So to be clear, Tim has been bitten over 200 times by venomous snakes on purpose. Tim is just your average Wisconsin guy. If your average Wisconsin guy keeps cobras and black mambas in his basement. While most people's hobbies might include gardening or fantasy football, Tim's hobby is letting some of the world's deadliest snakes bite him. Like I said before, on purpose. Tim's mission is actually pretty noble. He wants to help create a universal antivenom. Most current antivenoms only work for one type of snake bite. So if you live in Alabama and you're bitten by a copperhead, only copperhead antivenom will be effective, not antivenom for a cottonmouth. Each venom needs its own antivenom. Currently, antivenom is produced by injecting small controlled doses of snake venom into large animals, most commonly horses. These doses are gradually increased over time to allow the horse to safely develop antibodies against the venom. Once the horse has developed a strong immune response, labs, blood is drawn and processed. This process isolates antibodies which are put into a solution which is then administered to patients who have sustained a snake bite. And keep in mind, this process is done for each species of venomous snake. Tim wants to fix this complicated process. He wants to help scientists make one antivenom to rule them all. Tim's fascination with snakes began at age 5 when he was bitten by a harmless garter snake. While most kids would never want to touch another snake after an experience like that, not Tim. This early encounter sparked a lifelong interest in snakes. As he grew older, Tim's curiosity shifted from harmless species to the world's deadliest snakes. 2.7 million people worldwide are bitten by venomous snakes each year, with 120,000 of those bites resulting in death. Motivated by this global problem and a desire to help, Tim developed a hypothesis. By gradually exposing himself to increasing doses of snake venom, he could build up his own immunity and potentially contribute to a universal antivenom. He began carefully by injecting himself with diluted venom, and after months of this, he survived his first intentional bite from an Egyptian cobra in 2001. Feeling pretty good after living through that one, Tim allowed a monocled cobra to bite him soon after, which nearly killed him and landed him in a coma for 4 days. So that was a bit of a setback. Undeterred, Tim kept going, once he could breathe on his own again. By the way, he says that a snake bite feels like a bee sting, times 1,000. After years of bites and venom injections, Tim's immune system became a venom-fighting machine. He began working with scientists who were also hoping to develop a better solution to snake bites. Researchers found 2 powerful antibodies in Tim's blood that can neutralize neurotoxins from some of the world's deadliest snakes. They then mixed these antibodies with a molecule I can't pronounce, but the result? An antivenom cocktail that's fully effective against 13 species of snake and partially effective against 6 more. The universal antivenom isn't ready for humans just yet. There's still work to do, especially for viper bites, which use a different kind of toxin. But scientists believe this is a huge leap forward. Tim was advised to no longer allow snakes to bite him, and it's been several years since his last bite. But the study of his blood and the antibodies contained therein will continue to be studied and developed to possibly save thousands of lives every year. And there's no denying that that's pretty cool. But I do feel the need to caution you against intentional snake bites. So yeah, don't let cobras bite you on purpose. Or any other snake. Leave that to Tim. He already took one for the team. 200 times. I know you're smart, but I'll sleep better knowing that I've covered all my bases.
Sarge, I don't need to be monitored all day long. I'm not a toddler. This is stupid.
I know you're not a toddler. Because my toddlers know that stupid is a no-no word.
I'm going to cover some quickish news this week. These are stories that aren't quite long enough to dedicate an entire segment to, but interesting nonetheless. Ever wonder if being nosy is actually good for you? No? The science points to yes. Well, kinda. A new study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia found that people who stay curious as they age tend to have sharper minds and a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. So asking the question, why a lot, might just be your secret superpower. Researchers followed over 1,800 older adults for up to 8 years. They found that those people who kept their curiosity alive, whether by learning new skills, exploring new places, or just asking a lot of questions, were less likely to develop memory problems or dementia. It turns out curiosity keeps your brain busy, building new connections and fighting off cognitive decline. But what's even better, this protective effect held up even for people with genetic risk factors for Alzheimer's. So whether you're reading about black holes, learning to bake sourdough, or just wondering why cats have an obsession with knocking things off the table, you're giving your brain a workout. And if anyone calls you nosy, just tell them you're investing in your cognitive future.
I saw the McDowells. Luckily, they didn't see me, so I followed them all through the store and I wrote down everything they bought.
Why?
For evidence, silly.
Rose, they steal jewels, not Gino's pizza rolls.
18-year-old Ella Walker suffered a serious back injury in a trampoline accident and had to undergo surgery. She ended up in the hospital wearing a back brace 24/7, and it looked like she'd have to miss out on her senior prom. But the staff at the Woodlands Medical Center did not find that to be acceptable. Instead of letting Ella miss out, they brought the prom to her hospital room, complete with a theme, the Roaring Twenties by the way, decorations, music, and dresses. They invited her friends, set up the party, and made sure Ella got her big night, even if the dance floor was a little bit smaller than usual. But the best part was when Ella's doctor surprised her at the end of the night with the news she could finally go home. Now that's a good send-off. Ella will be attending graduation in person later this month. Her hope is to become an EMT, paramedic, and ultimately a nurse. So there's a good chance Ella will have an opportunity to show her future patients the same kindness her nurses showed her. Imagine checking your front porch and finding not one, not two, but 22 giant boxes of lollipops. That's exactly what happened to Holly LeFevers of Kentucky, thanks to her 8-year-old son Liam, who just wanted to do something kind for his friends. Throw a carnival and hand out dum-dums as prizes. A great thought, just a slight miscalculation. Liam, a fan of window shopping on Amazon, same, got a little too enthusiastic with his mom's phone. Instead of just adding the dum-dums to the cart, he accidentally ordered nearly 70,000 lollipops. Yep, you heard that right. The only thing worse than finding your porch covered in dum-dums that your 8-year-old ordered is finding out that the candy cost you about $4 grand. It turns out that 8 more boxes were on their way, but Holly was able to get them returned to sender before they arrived. And after working with her bank and some exposure thanks to the local news, Amazon agreed to give her a refund. The family donated boxes of lollipops to their church, local organizations, and really anyone who'd take them off their hands. Suffice it to say, Holly's making changes to her Amazon account and probably double-checking everything anytime her son uses her phone.
Oh, Dad! Kevin! You spent $967 on road service!
If you're looking for more good news in your life, be sure to check out my video from last week, where I discuss a study that shows how trees communicate during a solar eclipse, how Cold War era spy satellites are being used to uncover old landmines, and a man who was rescued from Mount Fuji twice in 1 week. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing so we can ignore all the bad news together.